right. Thank you for staying with us. The conversation right now is about what we said earlier, by the way. I think that's the biggest news right now in Nigeria. The agreement of 70,000 naira between the organized labor and the federal government. And that was a proposal, final proposal from the committee put up by the federal government and, of course, agreed to by Mr. President Bola Tinubu. And it has been agreed upon by all the parties, including the leadership of the NLC led by Joe Ajero and that of the Trade Union Congress led by Comrade Festus Osifo, and 70,000 naira, after almost 8 months of negotiation, because as we said earlier, that negotiation was set to being put together. That committee from December last year or thereabout, this is July, 7, 8 months of negotiations. Initial proposal from the government side, from the labor side, was 615,000 naira. And the initial proposal, the starting point for the federal government was 38,000 naira. Different back and forth, threat of protest, threat of going on strike. And here we are, yesterday, July 18, 70,000 naira was finally agreed with some conditions and promises as well, in which we will get into. We are being joined this morning by labor enthusiasts, civil rights activists, and of course, a public affairs analyst. Yes, it's good that I call him Comrade this morning. Comrade Ayo Ologun joins us live in the studio. Thank you, Comrade, for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Very happy to see you here. And I'm seeing you beaming with smile. I don't know, maybe you're just intentionally happy by yourself. But what do you make with the development, 70,000 naira, after months of back and forth?
Well, my smile, my laughter is simply sarcastical because one would have thought that if this is where we're coming to, 70,000, then the back and forth, the threats of strike action, the threat of protest and all of that would not have been necessary. Just like you rightly said, the federal government proposed at the initial stage 38,000, and the labor went as far as 600 and something thousand. And for me, for a party that started negotiation from over 600,000 to now agree to 70,000, for me, it's laughable. Because if you knew ab initio that you are likely going to agree to proposition of 70,000, why do you have to go that far? At the point, the labor union even made us realize that they will not settle for anything less than 6 figures. And for me, I already put 6 figures at 100,000. So everywhere I go, places I've been asked questions, I've always said, oh, with this stance of the labor, I don't think the minimum wage will be any cover less than 100,000. And then you recall that they also met with the president last week, and 65,000 was proposed, which was rejected, which led to the second meeting that I had yesterday. So 65,000 of last week ended up at 70,000 this week. What's the hula baloo about? Why do you have to take us through the long route of strike actions? Somewhere in between, we had protests, we had picketing. At the point in time, you shut down the economy of the country. You threw every one of us into unwarranted darkness, shutting down the energy sector of the country and all of that. So for me, it simply shows that in Nigeria, perhaps the whole setup is a joke. Because you would have thought that those who are agitating, those who are saying that, no, this is the way things should be done, this is the right thing. They even went as far as insulting the National Assembly. The National Assembly should not get involved. They will shut down the National Assembly. How can you be taking jumbo pay and you are proposing less than 100,000 for Nigerians? You are wicked, you are this. So all of those words of action, all of those threats, all of those strong stance ended at an agreement of 70,000. I don't want to believe there are undercurrents. I don't want to believe there are under-table dealings. But for me, it's a disappointment that the labor union leadership, as it stands today, led by Joe Ajero and Festus, could not have done better for Nigerian workers than 70,000. So you feel disappointed? I feel very disappointed. I was not expecting that the final decision or the final negotiation would be anything less than 100,000. So seeing it at 70,000 now, for me, 70,000 is not in tandem with the reality of the economic situation of this country. It's not. The inflation rate is over 300%. Your salary, as at the last count, the last minimum wage was 30,000. So what you've had now is just about 150% or less than 150% increase in the minimum wage. So how do you justify a less than 150% increase in the minimum wage to over 300% of inflation. How do you juxtapose that? What can 70,000 do in the present economy? If you want to look at it from the layman's angle, 70,000 naira still does not buy a bag of rice. And that is perhaps one commodity that no household can do without. I can tell you that 70,000 cannot buy a basket of tomato. As at the last count, it was 64,000. So let's assume that you have a family of 5. There's a likelihood you consume a basket of tomato in a month. That's if you are buying in bulk. So you use your whole salary to go and buy half bag of rice and maybe half bag of tomato and be living on that for the rest of the month. Where comes the cost of housing? Where comes the cost of transportation, which are both on high side? Because these are indices with which you measure what the minimum wage should be. What is the average cost of housing? What is the average cost of transportation from your point of living to your place of work? Because that's the first thing a reasonable person will calculate. If you are a salary earner, where I'm living to my working place, what is the average cost of transportation? By the time you do that, you calculate it times 24 days of the month. That's if you don't work at the weekend. So if you calculate that with the present reality, and you take that away from 70,000, what is left? So, but like I always say, you can't be righteous than the Pope, or how do you say, you can't be more saintly than the Pope. If those who are concerned have said it's good enough for them, well, it's best for them. But I can tell you that we are likely going to have serious problem in our hand going forward, and I will identify 2. The major problem will be in the private sector. That's the truth. A lot of private sector workers are working round the clock. They work from Monday to Saturday, sometimes on Sunday, because, of course, every employer of labor wants to maximize the strength of their workers. So how do you justify that a worker that works from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a daily basis, round the 7 days of the week, you are offering him 70,000 as the minimum? Because whatever is going to be the increase on that minimum wage will be as par with what they calculate as increase. So how do you justify? That's number one. Even at 70,000, a lot of private business owners will still not pay. How do you want a school, for example, a private school, because that seems to be the lowest of in the rank? How do you expect a primary school teacher, a primary school owner to pay 70,000 naira as minimum wage? Is most unlikely. That is one aspect that we're going to face crisis. The second aspect of it is among the governors. You begin to hear excuses going forward. We've seen propositions before now. Some of them propose 50, some of them propose this. There are some states that can afford 200,000. And I'm sure the workforce in those states will push for something bigger and much more realistic than 70,000. But what happens to states like our state, Oshun, like Ekiti, and a few other states?
We'll come to the state governors and their positions, and either they will be able to pay, but we allow you to see this particular clip. It's just an excerpt of what happened yesterday, and we'll continue after. Let's take a look.
Happy to announce today that both the federal government and the organizing labor have agreed on an increase on the 62,000 naira minimum wage. The new national minimum wage that we expect Mr. President to submit to the National Assembly for legislation is 70,000 naira. But that is not all. There is also a boost that Mr. President has assured, ensuring that massive investment is going to be made in the area of infrastructure. There is also a deepening of the investment of the federal government in.
We are in an era where things are moving very fast in terms of both macro and microeconomic policies. But we also caveat that this is going to be done every 3 years. 3 years. The next review will be 3 years. And after that announcement, we from Labour, just as they said that we have received what the president has promised from both.
Of course, you could say the gentleman there that spoke, yesterday at that particular agreement. Comrade, let me ask you one thing before we get to the rest of the matter. You have expressed your disappointment in the whole thing. Now, 3 possibilities here. These are concerns of the people, and because we mirror the feel of the society, let me ask you this morning, and for the benefit of you being an insider, you know, being a movement person, a labor person. Number one, could it be that the labor have been on serious, have been issue? Number two, do you think maybe the labor's hands were tied? Maybe the federal government showed them the books to say this is where we are, and they had to agree finally because the energy in which they stood on that six figures, almost everybody believed, just like you rightly said, it wasn't going to be less than 100,000. Number three, do you also think maybe this has been a charade all along? That maybe Labour and the government knew where they were going. They were just playing drama or being dramatic because how could you imagine a 615 ending up at a 70,000 naira? You have been an insider. You're still an insider at many points. What do you think happened? Is there possibility of any of those things?
For me, there are three prisms to this. Number one, from experience, it's like going to war. You must have everything planned. I want to believe, except otherwise is the case, that before the labor union started their demand from 615, they must have looked at the record. What is accruable to the country in terms of IGR? What is accruable to the country in terms of sales of, money generated from
Do they have that
oil?
privilege?
Why should they
always
not
see
be?
the books?
Why should they not be? What is the essence of being a labor leader? Look, the people that are keeping the books, are they not members of the labor union?
Right.
The ministers don't keep the books. The books are better kept by civil servants who prepare the tables, the permanent secretary, the directors, and they are members of the labor union. So without them leaking government secrets, as some people might want to target, there's no way labor leaders can tell me they do not have access to records. Even those that are not insiders as much as they are as labor leaders, there are ways we get documents from government quarters if they need be. So it is either the labor union was over projecting without consideration of the books, or what they saw in the books was deceitful on one side. I also want to believe that before the labor union can decide or agree to 70,000, there's the likelihood that the federal government, led by the president himself, must have shown them what is obtainable at the moment. So if they were convinced by what is obtainable as might have been shown to them at the meeting yesterday, then what happened to the records that they were probably working with while they put the projection of the minimum wage at 615,000? That something is wrong somewhere in between. Have we made more profit, or have we suddenly lost so much that you now believe the 70,000 naira by the provision of what is obtainable in the books is tenable? Number three is the fact that in most cases, and I'm saying this with the benefits of insight, in most cases, labor leaders are often compromised with one thing or the other. We've had records of such, and there have been such accusations laid at the door of Joe Ajero. A lot of people have said, look, whatever is involved in now, all the drama is playing with the labor union or even with the Labour Party as supposedly owned by the labor, is because he wants to be governor of a state. And if that be the case, just if that be the case, and perhaps the other person who is the leader of the 2UC also have an ambition that is not known to the people, there is the likelihood also that some of this compromise might have been on the premise of promises for give and take. If you allow this to pass, we'll allow this to be. And unlike what it used to be, labor leaders these days are beginning to see that position as an opportunity or a stepboard to occupying political office. Right from the days of Adams Ohiolei. Every labor leader now sees the occupation of the office of being a labor leader at whatever level, even at the state level, as a springboard to getting into politics. Do not forget, Senator Smart Adeyemi was the leader of the labor union at the point as an NUJ president, NUJ national president. He used that as a springboard to become a senator. He was fighting so hard to become governor until the table turned. So there's also the likelihood, because we should put that in some inverted comma, that there's the likelihood too that there might have been some sort of compromise in between. Otherwise, how do you justify what you must have seen that allowed you to make the projection of 615 to be different from what you might have been shown to now agree to a provision of 70,000? So for me, those are the three proponents that I might have made us arrive at where we are.
You know, does this now give credence to the position by some people who believe that the Nigeria Labour Congress does not fight for the people or for their pockets?
It gives a lot of credence to that, because over time, they have shown lack of character, with due respect. At a point in time, Nigerians will tell you that if the labor tells you that there will be strike action by 12 midnight, don't panic. Just wait till say 11:59, they will call it off. And in most cases, that has often been the case, except in very rare occasions. They will have prepped up the whole nation. Oh, there's going to be a strike action, there's going to be a protest. Just wait a few minutes to the time of commencement of that strike action. You will just hear, for one reason or the other, the strike has been put on hold. And that has happened again and again. There's also, of course, it's not even an accusation. At the point, I think it was the regime after Ohiolei that we saw them being offered Ghana must go at a meeting in Jos, coming out of a meeting venue with bags of money and all of that. So a lot of Nigerians have lost confidence in the leadership of the NLC and other labor union. And I must dare say that over time, the leaders of the labor movement have failed to prove the people's mindset wrong by the kind of actions that they take, by the kind of compromises that they agree to. Unfortunately, we live in a nation where everything ends at the table of the leader. How many of the state chairmen of NLC or TUC were at that meeting yesterday? It is the national leadership across all the bodies, the what's it called, whatever organization, those who are in terms of fabrics and all of that. So it is always those that are at the front, because you would have expected that if the labor were what it used to be when that proposition was made yesterday, you don't go ahead and make an agreement. There must have been a resolve. Oh, we'll go back and inform the Congress. Whatever decision of the Congress is, we'll communicate it. So where, I don't know if, except I'm not in the news, I cannot read or I cannot recall where a Congress of NLC head, where they must have agreed, okay, this is the least we should go for. And that has always been the case all along during the negotiation. Whenever they go into negotiation, they will tell the tripartite committee, oh, we'll refer back to the Congress or to the leadership. Whatever decision we take, we'll revert back. Only for that of yesterday not to take that route. You enter into the meeting, whatever you must have been shown and discussed, you made an agreement without a recourse to the Congress, which is in most cases the chairman.
We learned that we have their Congress today.
What is the essence of the Congress? It's simply going to go, they're simply going to inform them. It should be the Congress taking a decision of agreement, which the leadership should now communicate back to the government. Not that you have already compromised and agreed with the government and you are simply coming to the Congress to come and inform them. It should not be that order. It should be you telling the Congress, this is what has been proposed and we think it is fair enough. Should we agree? And once the Congress say go ahead, you go back to that meeting and concede. Not that you have conceded and you are simply coming to the Congress as a piece of information. We both know that is not the order.
So do you think this is connected in any way to the proposed protests being announced all over the country to take place in August? And if that be, do you think this announcement of 70,000 naira will douse the tension and make the people, recoil back into their shell to say that, let's see what this will do to the economy?
Let me tell you, this government, I don't want to use the word smart because that will be giving them undue accolade. But the present government is so skilled, I think that's a better word, is so skilled in management of crisis. They know what protests can bring. I've been part of plannings for the Occupy Nigeria protest that's supposed to start on August 1st. And I can tell you that there have been negotiations and compromises across board. As we speak, 3 major organizations that are supposed to be part of the leadership, the coordination, and the planning of the protest has pulled out.
Why?
Let's leave the why. And so the government knows that, look, the anger of the people is not what you pat at the back and it subsides. They know that if this protest continues to gather momentum and Nigerians get angrier than they have ever been, and you now couple it with that of the labor union, don't forget that Ajero still threatened a couple of days ago that there will be a total shutdown of the country by August if an agreement is not reached on the minimum wage. So imagine the rage and the anger of the people on one side, the protests and the shutting down of the economy by the NLC on the other side. You can imagine how high the proponents will have been. So now what you will have thought they should have done before now, they are now waking up to begin to do a few things to douse the tension. While negotiation is going on across boards, civil society organizations, international organizations, what have you. The next thing they did was to quickly put that of the labor at bay. The labor will have no reason to go for a protest now. Why would you shut down the country when you have agreed to the new minimum wage? The same day, yesterday, the House of Rep woke up from whatever side of the bed to announce to Nigerians that they were going to slash their salary by half. And I laughed. The salary, the official salary of an House of Rep member is 600,000. So if you are slashing it by half, you are simply giving Nigeria 300,000 from your salary. What happens to the over 5 million allowances that you are entitled to every month as a member of the House of Rep? So who is deceiving who? You have 5 million, over 5 million naira boxed up somewhere that you are entitled to legally every month. You are not talking of cutting that off or cutting that one by half. But the basic salary, which is as good as the salary of a senior professor, 600,000, is what you are slashing by half. What is the effect of the slashing of your salary by 50%, your basic salary, to the over 5 million naira accruable to you on a monthly basis? But to some people, that is the point of negotiation. Well, what else do you want us to do? You're saying that we are earning bogus salary. Now we are slashing by 50%. That move is enough to get some people out of the plan for the protests, sentimentally. The labor is out. So before you know it, they continue to break down ranks. So if I thought there will be a protest by August, it will be maybe by senior colleague Ohiolei and a handful of people. And the people that they are supposed to be fighting for will be the ones to tell them, what else do you want? They have given you new minimum wage. The senators and the House of Rep members have slashed their salary. They have given you CNG. They have done this. What else do you want to do? Do you want to kill them?
Forgetting the LG autonomy too.
And the LG autonomy is coming at this time, which is pro-people. So if a number of people decide to still go ahead with the protest now, there's a likelihood that the same Nigerians that they are supposedly fighting for will carry cane in their hand and beat them off the streets. And that is where the tactic ability to suppress the people by the present administration comes in for me.
Amazing. We go for this break. When we return, we will still be speaking to these issues, looking at the organized private sector and how they can also make do with this new announcement. What is in for the workers at the private sector? Do not go anywhere. Morning Spring will be right back.